Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Seniors Hub in Juba, South Sudan. This is an evening with. Seniors Hub is a hub for creative artists and technologists. We mostly host youth. And an evening with is a program that we try to bring people who have impact and a footprint so that they can discuss with the youth. And I'm delighted to have Amanie, is it Illfated?
Yes, Amanie
Okay.
Illfated.
I didn't, that is Illfated.
Yes.
Okay, good. So maybe for the benefit of our audience here who probably don't have an Instagram account or haven't been so much into the music business, maybe you can just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Yes, so I go by the name Amanie Illfated, and I'm a singer, songwriter, producer, and former model as well.
Okay, good. So what's up with the name?
I knew everyone would ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I started my music, my parents weren't very interested as I was in the career. So as they watched me continue, they would say that, you know, this direction that you're going in is going to lead you to a bad future. It's going to lead you to being poor. It's going to lead you to a lot of bad things. So I remember just looking at them one day and said, I guess that's my fate. So I guess I have an ill fate.
So that's how you ended up with the name Amanie
Yes.
Illfated.
Yes.
When we were discussing earlier, when you told me you're a South Sudanese Canadian or a Canadian of South Sudanese origin, or how do you describe yourself?
I would say I'm South Sudanese first.
Yeah.
And I was raised in Canada.
Your parents migrated from here, right?
Well, we didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So basically when the war broke out, we wound up going to Uganda. From there, I always say that we got the golden ticket that said Canada on it, and we wound up flying all the way to Canada and wound up staying there for pretty much majority of my life.
And you were born there or here?
No, I was born here.
You were born here,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that I had this discussion with the previous guest, who is Tongun, the actor.
Yeah.
Canada also has a very progressive kind of immigration policy, and probably they took a lot of South Sudanese.
Yes, Canada is very interesting because they love to welcome people. The door is almost always open, so yeah, it's a blessing for them. Right.
And what kind of upbringing did you go through, like in Canada? Like what were your experiences as a young person?
So the experience, I kind of had two experiences. So there was the at-home experience where, you know, it was literally South Sudan inside the house. So my parents were always, you know, going by the African culture. You have to do everything African style. And then when you get out of the house, you have the Canadian culture where you're looked at as you're black. They don't see African, they don't see South Sudanese, they don't see culture. All you are is black, and you're in a white neighborhood. So they're just trying to figure out, like, what are you doing here? You know, maybe you shouldn't socialize with our kids, that kind of thing. So there's like a lot of racism, but then there's also a lot of really good people with good hearts who are very welcoming.
And I think also that's something that I experienced somewhere, because I mean in South Sudan and also in Africa, I never identified as black. For us here, when we refer to black, we're talking about your skin color, like your dark skin. Like the identity black, I think first when I went to Europe and people were like, oh, the identity black, it never featured in my life. But I think for someone who grew up in Canada, probably that's a very prominent and probably the most significant identity that one has.
Yes, sometimes you almost forget that you're black doing your day-to-day in Canada. And then something will happen, and then you'll just realize, oh, I forgot I'm black. And then you're like, okay, that's very odd. And one thing I realized, I started to actually see that even more in the first time that I came to Juba in November. And everybody's black, so I didn't really like feel that sense that, okay, noticing that I'm black, it's just like I'm African, I'm South Sudanese, there's more to it than just black skin. So I think that's why I really appreciated coming home, just to experience that you're not black, you're at home, you're African.
I think that's very interesting, because also the converse is true also here. Here, all the Lebanese, the whatever, are lumped as Khawajat.
Yes, it's true, it's true.
So I usually joke about the Lebanese. I tell them when they come to South Sudan, they get all the naming privilege of being called white, but without the privilege of whiteness. Because everyone's like, okay, Khawaja, you're white, and stuff like that. What about your Kakwa identity? How does that feature?
So with Kakwa, it doesn't feature as much as South Sudan. So a lot of my family were very scattered. So we wind up kind of just taking on the national identity, and then just Kakwa is kind of the language. Plus we're mixed with so many different communities. Pujulu, we're mixed with like Bari. So we're always associating. We're just kind of like all one clump of people.
I'm a Pujulu.
So, you know.
So, talk me through your kind of your journey into music, because that's the theme of this evening. Like, how did you discover music, or how did music discover you? Kind of.
Yeah. So before coming to Canada, I was always aware of music. One of my favorite artists, well, two favorite artists of all time, Kanda Bongo Man and Yondo's sister, and I was just completely infatuated with them. But it wasn't until I was in Canada and I was like 4 years old, and I saw Celine Dion on TV. And I had no idea what exactly she was doing. She's just on the stage with this microphone, and I'm like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Yep. So from then on, it was like, that's the decision.
So seeing Celine Dion is huge.
Yes.
And she's huge globally. I think in Canada she's also very significant.
Yeah, she's like an icon in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So that now from there on, where do you go from there? By kind of like getting inspired by seeing her on TV. Where do you go from there?
Well, if you're me, you start off by being really shy and hiding and not telling anybody that you really want to do music just because you're afraid of what people say. But by the time I think I was about 10 years old, I finally came out and decided, you know what, like this is really what I want to do. I want to keep trying. So I started with writing because my English was very, very bad at that time. So started to write, and then from there started to play piano. We were doing a lot of the cultural dance throughout the city, so I mixed that, like dancing and singing at the same time. And then from there, we got a computer, and that's when I started producing music and learning to record my voice and put together albums, build websites, build all my marketing material, and it just went upward from there.
And when was this, like, when you were doing this recording and the producing?
For me, I started at 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So I used to stay like literally the whole night just working on a drum kit or something, or trying to get a piano segment correct. Yeah.
So like, and what was your first piece of music? Probably that will be very interesting to hear, to know about.
No one is gonna know.
The first music is usually crap, right?
No. We're gonna keep that in a vault and just never visit that ever again.
Yeah, because I had Dynamic here, and he was telling me about his first songs. Most artists are usually, if you bring them their first song, they'll probably fight with you.
Oh, you will never see us again. We will disappear.
And but then, like, once one improves as you progress, kind of with the music.
Yes, I think truthfully speaking, it's not really like the production that's bad. It's our confidence that improves. So as we keep doing it, like after a year, we're so confident that we could still be making the same terrible music, but now we're confident in it. So now we can show it to people and be proud of it. Yeah. So
you think a lot of the successful musicians are probably just more confident?
Yeah, they're more confident, and then with the confidence too, I find when you have the confidence, you wind up building more skill. You wind up going head on into challenges. You wind up, you see something like, okay, I don't really know how to play a guitar, but I did learn how to play the piano. So maybe if I go and pick up that guitar in a month from now, I should be at a certain level. So you just kind of, yeah.
And you play instruments?
Yes, piano.
You play piano?
Yes.
Okay. So now, I mean, the idea of playing and also like doing music, what kind of process goes? I know the production bit. What kind of process goes into the vocal, and what kind of training or mentorship that makes one good?
So for me, I did take a few vocal classes when I was younger, as well as piano. but yeah, like in terms of training, it was just kind of self-taught. So practicing every single day, working towards building the craft and just doing better every single day. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, at what stage did you realize, like, okay, now this is good? Like, which song or which performance made you believe, like, okay, I have something in my hand, or this is music?
Yeah. Okay. So that would be when I think I was like 16, and that was when the MySpace era. When, yeah, everyone was just discovering the internet. Facebook wasn't even a thing yet. And I wrote this song in music class and posted it and didn't expect anything of it, but it wound up getting over 100,000 streams.
100,000 streams?
Which, yeah, I don't even understand it to this day. I think it's a terrible song, but
what is the title of the song?
It's called I Tried.
I Tried.
Yeah, and it was like one of the most depressing songs I've ever written, yet it became one of like the most downloaded, most streamed songs I've ever had.
Why would you say it is very depressing?
Because I actually wrote it, like it was like a really sad song. It's like I tried, but then I failed, and that's what it was all about. But I guess people could relate to that, so.
I mean, for the people here, I think I think a lot of people here are aware of MySpace, right? It's kind of like the grandfather of Facebook. I think it's Facebook. I think MySpace, if Facebook and Spotify hook up, that would give you MySpace. It was social media combined with, because it was big on music. MySpace was big on music.
Yeah, I actually like how you described it, because that's very accurate. Spotify and Facebook together.
I don't know why it died. It's.
Yeah, it got complicated, too complicated. Yeah.
Are you into digital a lot? Are you into digital distribution or digital production or stuff like that?
Yes, now I actually find myself doing most stuff digital. And then occasionally I have a band. But yeah, digital is kind of my thing now.
And what does that include when you talk of digital?
So, I mean, I produce with programs that people probably don't want to hear. Cubase, Reason. I first started with Fruity Loops, but now kind of working with Pro Tools and Logic now.
I don't know. I don't understand a thing out of those tools, but probably like the more geekish musicians here kind of like understand that. We will probably later on play some of the music and stuff like that. I saw on your Instagram is that like you do a lot of concerts in Canada and in other places that I probably don't know. What is the experience around that, or how did you get into that?
So I guess I started in high school, just kind of sending out my information to different organizations, festivals, just letting them know, hey, I'm available. I'd love to perform. I remember like my very first performance I got was when I was like 17 and had no idea what I was doing. I literally cried on stage. So from then on, I just kind of like built myself up, kept going at it, built a nice EPK, so like a kit for people to see, and then just kept sending it out. So now I'm performing a lot in Canada, and now this coming year is going to be actually pretty incredible because I do have a show in Tanzania. There is a show in Juba that's in the works. Yeah, and then so it's going to be cool.
When you sing, when you perform in Canada or in Tanzania or in Juba, is it the same in terms of like the music? How do people consume the music? I could be totally judgmental. I see a lot of white people dancing to African music. Yes. Not good dancing, but they're vibing to it. I don't know what you make of that.
Well, what I find is like all of the African tracks that I do in America, Canada, I kind of get typecast, if that makes any sense. So it pushes me towards stages where it's like an African festival rather than just a festival in general. So that's like experiences that I had with the genre there. But one thing that really shocked me actually was that a lot of the more Americanized music that I've done is very popular here in Juba, which, I always thought that no one's going to listen, but yeah, you guys have really pulled through.
So, but when you mean Americanized, you mean like songs that when I listen to it's similar to listening to Celine Dion or someone or something American or Canadian.
Yeah, well, maybe not like Celine Dion, but
Drake?
yeah, like a Drake or Beyonce or something like that. Yeah, I was very surprised. Actually, last year with the South Sudan Music Awards, I was thinking that the more African tracks would have been nominated, but it was actually the most R&B American-sounding track that I've ever done was the one that won the award. So I was pretty shocked.
Yeah, because we consume actually a lot of American music here. I mean, I grew up just listening to Eminem, whoever, Ja Rule, everything like that, because I don't know, that's what is, I think thanks to Afrobeats now, we're being pushed into kind of like consuming a lot of African music, and African music is also being consumed in the West. But I think a lot of us here are used to consuming also Americanized, or what you call music, yeah.
Yeah, like Western music, I guess.
Yeah, Western music. One thing that kind of probably, like if there are musicians here or would-be musicians or entrepreneurs, one thing that I really got impressed with you is how organized and how ready you are. Because I messaged you up on WhatsApp and I was like, hey, I want to host you for this and this. Can you send me a picture? You sent me your picture and you sent me this beautiful, very amazing 2-pager bio. It's kind of like, it like had your story, what you did, the festivals that you featured in, your website, your Instagram, your Twitter, blah, blah, nice photos, your tracks, your YouTube. Because I do fundraising and product development and stuff like that. I find that very, very important. Like very, it's at times it could look like simple work, but that is very impressive. I was like, wow, this person is serious. Yeah. Probably you can talk about that, maybe for the benefit of the audience here or for the benefit of the people who want to do music or want to do something else that they want to sell out.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started in music, I realized that I wasn't going to get a manager right away, and that if I wanted things done, and I had to find a way to get it done. So when I first started with the website, I would spend maybe each week 2 to 3 hours on the website trying to figure out how to do it. Then I learned all about the marketing, like the EPK, putting all that stuff together, writing a proper bio, going in for photo shoots, updating all of that constantly, making sure everything is easily accessible. Because one thing that, for musicians plus anyone in the arts needs to understand is that there's so many options. There's so many options. So if you have a festival here, they're probably getting hundreds and thousands of applications every single day, every single week, every single month. So you need to be able to stand out and have everything organized and ready to go so that they can be, impressed by it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's my friend here, he does a lot of music. He's a radio presenter. I find that to be very impressive because even it happens with, I do speaking engagements. Whenever I do it, I want to do, someone asks me for a speaking engagement. I have about 4 versions of my bio. One which I feature as a young South Sudanese, another one which I feature as a young African and one which I feature as a tech person. So whenever someone asks me for the bio, I'm like, okay, so what is it for? Like, okay, it's for a tech conference. I'm like, okay, of course. The first line of it features like a tech entrepreneur, Yeah. And I think that's very important because people don't have a lot of time to, as you said, they have hundreds of applicants and they really want to make the decisions kind of swift and kind of to the point. I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about humanitarian work and some of the work that you're doing in northern Uganda before I kind of allow for some questions, and also then we can play 1 or 2 tracks. You are also involved in humanitarian work.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to also tell us a little bit about that and how did you get into that and what are you doing right now?
Yeah, so in Uganda, I actually wound up putting 5 kids in school, taking them from a refugee camp in M.I.A and putting them in Kampala. So one thing about, being a refugee and going to Canada and, coming back that I've seen is that, even in Canada, if you don't get a university education, you don't get a college degree, you still have enough education to be able to do things that you want to do. You're able to get a job, you're able to do a lot. So with that education, I think it's extremely important. So when I came and I saw that there's a lot of children that aren't in school, they're not able to get that education. I just felt like, I got the education, even if it's a little bit, it's enough to, push and get these kids education as well.
And so 5 kids right now?
Yes, yeah, 5 kids. So they were refugees from South Sudan, and they were staying in M.I.A. So we wound up, it took a long time, but we made it. We got them into 2 schools in Kampala.
Yeah. And M.I.A is towards the northern Uganda. I mean,
yes.
On your way to that.
Yeah.
How? I don't want to ask you how old are you, but I'm saying, like, how does a young person like you manage to raise money or to sponsor such?
To sponsor, so what we were doing is the necklaces and beads. Actually, Aban is in the audience here.
Yeah,
he's
Aban.
the one. Yeah, he's been doing the bracelets. Yeah. So one thing I saw when I was in America, in Canada especially, is that people just love to buy little things. They'll spend money on little things and really pretty things. So I thought, why not make something that's really pretty and that's really meaningful? So those necklaces, 50% of the proceeds go towards the children. That's how we raise the money.
And I saw you have that on your website, and this is really amazing. No, this is really awesome. I mean, the CEO of Liquid Telecom is here. He's been pushing for local content and digital. Your website has an e-commerce section, and on it I saw these bracelets and these necklaces.
Yes.
So that means, like, people come to check your music, they also just buy directly from there.
Yes. Yes, so they can buy directly on the site, and then sometimes I'll do pop-ups. And most of the shows that I do, we have a merch table.
Yeah.
And instead of like my merchandise, I just put that on there, and then people can make donations. They can buy the necklaces and bracelets there as well.
And you guys are able to raise money on that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And I also saw the T-shirts. Very, very nice T-shirts. What's up with the T-shirts?
So the T-shirts, I guess a lot of people when they go to shows, they want to buy a physical album, a CD, but CDs are no longer in style, really. So T-shirts are there, so for them to buy and support.
I think saying that you're a musician is an understatement. You're an entrepreneur, a humanitarian, and also a musician, and doing all this stuff. And I think probably that's the nature of behavior that we want to kind of nudge people to do here at Seniors, because a lot of our creatives here, they probably like have one revenue stream and probably not stable, that revenue stream. So, I mean, I'm delighted that we have several creatives. I think we have poets, we have radio personalities, we have content creators. I think I'm delighted that we have this kind of an audience here, because people are able to learn on how to generate money from their art or around their art.
Yes.
At times it's not from the art directly. What are the challenges? What kind of challenges do you face in doing this work?
In doing like the commerce work, or
both the music and the commerce.
So the music thing, the biggest challenge is that I guess it's my personality. I'm a little bit too nice, so when I get into the industry, I get a lot of very interesting characters. So that's dealing with those every single day. And also being a female in the industry, sometimes we run into some very bizarre situations, like, me telling a man, hey, can you do this and this? And they're like, we don't listen to women. So,
I guess in South Sudan it's more pronounced.
It's actually, it's across all, like, it's not one specific South Sudanese or a Canadian or American. It's throughout the board. It's just, I'm in an industry where, there's not a lot of females, women in there doing things. So when a woman walks in to a room full of men, they're all like, we don't know what to do. Even though they know what to do, but, I'm there, so they don't know what to do. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I have with the music industry right now. But I feel like the more I get more experience, the easier it is to deal with all of that. And then when it comes to the humanitarian work, especially with the kids, one of the things is challenges I had was just learning how each country works. So it was kind of like not a mistake, it was a learning lesson for me to go into Uganda and basically get ripped off.
What?
Get ripped off. cheated here and there because we didn't know how much school supplies really cost there.
Oh, for the humanitarian one, for the kids, yeah.
Yes, or like, how much does a bus actually cost, and this hotel, like, is there a cheaper one? We didn't think like that. We just kind of were like, let's just go. So we wound up losing a lot during that process, but in losing, we also learned a lot. So, we're taking those experiences now. So when we put more kids in school, we at least know which markets to dodge and
and what is the goal from there? I mean, you're doing now 5 kids. Where do you see this going to?
Ideally, before I'm 50, I want to see at least 50 kids in school.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got 45 more to go.
And you're definitely not 50 right now.
No, it's coming soon, but
I think that's a very lofty goal, and also it's something it's good to have. I have 2 kids that I put in school. One is 14, and the other one is like 21.
Wow.
And it's really, really hard because the thing is that once you put kids in school, you might think you're just putting kids in school, but that the school actually treats you like a parent.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember I went to Nairobi. I was just having fun. Went there for a week. Then one of them, the boys called me. It's like, hey, actually today is the Parents' Day. And I had received a text 2 days before. But I'm like, okay, I looked at it, but then I'm like, okay, this is a text about, I am sponsoring this boy. He's in school. But I'm not a parent. So he's like, hey, today's Parents' Day and everyone is here and what? And I'm not like, oh damn, like I'm sorry, stuff like that. I think once you sign up for that, it's the full package.
It actually is. I really sympathize with your experience because I've gone through the same where it's like suddenly you have 5 kids. Suddenly, and they're calling every day, someone's sick, someone's this, they need that, can you show up for this? They have a soccer game, and you're like, how did I went to bed with no kids, I woke up with 5 kids. How did that happen?
No, it's very tricky. At the onset of the pandemic, actually my brother that I sponsor, their school, and I hated that so much. The school somehow thought it's a very genius idea for them to continue teaching the kids through WhatsApp. So they put all the parents, which includes me, on a WhatsApp group, and then they will send assignments, because the kids are supposed not to have phones. Yeah. They will send assignments on the WhatsApp groups, and then they will say like, okay, we need this assignment back in like 3 days. So I have to take the assignment from there, go to the boy, and then like he does the assignment and I'm supposed to send it back.
Yeah.
And then they started the teachers started treating me like a student now. Hey, I sent you this assignment, where is it? You guys supposed to submit this. and then there are other parents in the group who are kind of older and less savvy with WhatsApp. So they'll just send all kind of bullshit on that. I have nothing against old people, but then the kind of people who send motivational things or what.
Oh.
Then I kind of DM the teacher on the side. I'm like, I will pay whatever kind of money just to not go through this. Like, why? Like, why should people? And as someone who does IT, I'm kind of like, there is so many platforms for doing e-learning, Moodle, whatever. Like, the teachers could really do something better than put us in a WhatsApp group and sending us assignments and asking us to send it back. It's horrible.
Always in between some like photo, bless your day, this and that. I find it's always in the WhatsApp groups as well.
It's very tricky.
It's
And
crazy.
they take a photo of the book actually, and then they send it. It's God save us from
the things we put ourselves through, but it's worth it. It's always worth it.
It's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, we will take some questions.
Okay.
And then as we're preparing, I don't know if I'm asking for too much. If you can do one of your tracks here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And then we will take some questions I think it should be relatively easy for me to connect to the Bluetooth on that device and play something from here. Then she can do what the artists do with it. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Huh? What? She's a bona fide musician. You're the one who's supposed to mime. So we will do that. But then I think we can take some questions from the audience. And the way we do questions is just you raise your hand. And then we have a third mic here. I think it's, I don't know if it is Aban or someone can pass it. Just hold this mic. You just raise your hand and then the mic will come to you.
Well, mine is basically a comment, not really a question. I'm actually a fan of her music, and she has beautiful vocals, and then the sound quality of her music is super, and then I really commend her for marketing her music or marketing herself. This is something that South Sudanese musicians should learn from. I'm actually kind of disappointed trying to Google some of the South Sudanese musicians, but I tried to look for OJ, CJ Oman. I tried to look for Colonel Model, Mido online, but then I'm kind of disappointed. But when you search her, you find everything there. So I commend her for that. Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I would like to know your name first.
Yes, Amanie.
Amanie.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Your story actually impressed all of us. I would like to tell you my name. My name is Tabadeng. That's my name, Tabadeng. Not
Taba.
Tabadeng.
Tampadeng.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's my name.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Your story actually has made me, and then I actually learned a lot from you. And if I'm not mistaken, as I listen here, I realize that you have gone through a lot of things, maybe through Humanitarian, music, and other part of things. So I have only one question, and maybe the other one would be another question, so maybe comment. You sponsor 5 children, and some of these children, I'm quite sure maybe some of them, you don't know the parents. And then what actually motivates you to sponsor these children for them to go to school? And what idea do you want to put forward so that other people can follow, can poach, can imitate, that they can do as young people? And what advice would you tell to other people who are coming like us, like other ladies who are trying to musicians, who are trying to be musicians, who are actually trying to join music as you are? Because some of the other people, they are actually trying to be like you.
So with the children, for me, I guess it was really difficult to choose. So I actually had someone else choose the children, just because if I had a choice, I would just choose everybody, and we could go. But we really had a very tight number to choose. In terms of like what we can do to continue to help, if you can sponsor children to go to school, please do it. If not, then what I always say is just try to provide books and opportunities for children to learn, teach them how to read and write, because I think that's the most important thing for everybody on earth. As soon as you know how to read and write, as Jordan Peterson says, you're very powerful. And then in terms of the music industry, what I always say is that you need to always be prepared to meet the opportunity, because opportunity is always going to be floating around, but you don't want to ever get an opportunity and you're not ready for it. So you should be spending every single day preparing, and that means practicing. That means making your bios, whether it's 3 or 4 different biographies, always getting new photos, new things put together, so that, say someone like Nelson comes along and says, hey, we need you on Tuesday, you have everything ready to go, and you just take that opportunity just like that. That's what I would advise.
Good evening, Amanie, and good evening, everyone. I'm Susie William, and you inspired me personally because I am a young mother, and I'm a young mother of an American citizen. So yes.
Okay, I hear your challenge.
Yes. So you are very young, I can see, and I'm just imagining how you really break that barrier. So how I know how a South Sudanese, how they behave, our parents, let me be specific, and then being a young girl who grew up in the Western country that is more liberal, that is more of human rights, that support children's choice of career. And I know our people, which is something you mentioned earlier, that when you started your career, your parent thought it's going to land you to the wrong live, you know. So I have been in America a couple of times, but I came recently from Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is one of the cities that has been inhabited by so many black people, and most especially Africans, immigrants. And when I walk on the street, I find a lot of people, especially during summer like this, you find people making music, these are all these. And in my mind, I'm like, is this what you should do when you're in America? So look at me, the South Sudanese in me. So yeah, and I also live in New York, and I also, when you go to the subway, you find these special African doing a lot of music. And I'm like, is this American dream? So how did you find it as a young girl growing in a South Sudanese family? I want to be very specific now in the state of Africa, because we South Sudanese, we are very strict. We have our own way of life. Because I don't know what my daughter will want in the future, but the South Sudan in me might say no. Maybe you want to be a medical doctor, you want to be a pilot, you want to be an engineer, all these things. Look at yourself. I admire you, and you are very successful. 2, do you feel regretted that you have all this responsibility? Because sometimes we are taken up by emotions, especially when you live in the West. You see, we'll be like, I want to do this back home, I want to do this. But sometimes you say, oh, okay, what did I put myself into? Because like Nelson said, you become a parent when you put a child into school. I am a parent to so many children, and sometimes I feel like, oh my God, should I stop this? And then you look at this kid and you feel so sorry for her. Do you feel regret? Do you really feel like you are doing the right thing? Are you comfortable? Will you sustain it?
Again, going back to Jordan Peterson, I remember the one lecture of his that I just thought was the best lecture I've ever heard in my life was about responsibility, and how responsibility is actually a blessing. So if responsibility is a blessing and you have a ton of responsibilities, it means you're very blessed. You know, you've taken opportunities, you're really making something out of your life. You know, some of the billionaires, we look at them like, oh, you guys just have a bunch of money and you sit and stare at a wall all day, which is not true. They actually have probably 1,000 more responsibilities than us regular people every single day. So even with the children in school, or with my music, or with family and all of that, it's sometimes, yes, there are days where I would just, you know, just need to like sit time out for myself. But at the end of the day, I look at it and I say, this is a responsibility that I'm actually proud of and I'm happy to take. And in terms of, you know, having children being raised in America and trying to figure out the cultural thing, I mean, I don't have the answers for that, but I know the one thing that worked for me was actually what my uncle said. But unfortunately, he passed in 2014, but we only had one conversation. I'd never met him in my life, only one conversation on the phone, and he said he didn't expect anything from me, just for me to finish my education. Doesn't have to be a university degree. You don't have to be an astronaut or a scientist. Just finish your education and then figure out what you want to do for your life after that. And for me, that was the most impactful statement I had ever heard in my life. There was no, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I know South Sudanese parents, we need to do everything all at once at the same time. But it was just a breath of fresh air to hear that. And I think that really made me feel more relaxed to say, you know what, yes, I can just get my education. That's something I can do. And then after that, I can do the things that I want. I'm not expected to do too much. So I would say for parents to just, you know, relax on the expectations of your children, and actually, rather than let them, you know, confine them and close all the doors and lock them in a room and never let them out, rather leave the doors and the windows open and just be prepared for the day when, you know, they get caught in the door, or, you know, they went out and then they're coming back and you're like, oh, the door's still open, come on, here we go. Like, what did you learn from it? How can we rebuild? How can we you know, help you? Mm-hmm.
Amanie Illfated, everyone. And
Thank
actually,
you, thank you.
not as ill-fated as the name sounds. She's actually like very well-fated. Okay. So,
Thank you. Actually, it's really funny about the name Amanie, because we didn't have the Swahili meaning for it. We had the Kakwa meaning for it. So the name is actually ah-MAH-nee, and my grandmother gave me this entire lecture about a few months ago. So she says, ah-MAH-nee means to be hated against. So it's a very interesting contrast. It's always the opposite. So I always think that, you know what, like you can have the worst of the worst, but you can make it something better.
Definitely, for sure. Okay, so we will have Boniface for 30 minutes, and then meanwhile we can close it with a performance and questions.
Yes.
Okay, clap for.
Right, let's get started.
Alright guys, so I go by the name Amanie Illfated, and the song that I'm going to sing for you guys I actually dedicate to my father, who was the one that brought us all the way from South Sudan to Canada. And one thing that we always think when we go from South Sudan to elsewhere is that money is going to grow on trees, and every house is going to be the size of a mansion. And within America, it's not really like that. It's still pretty good, but we do face things such as racism and classism. So this song is dedicated to that struggle.
One more.